Jack Kirby was born in 1917, the child of immigrants on the Lower East Side, and that experience shaped him into the storyteller he would become.
I couldn't accept the things that were going on around me. I wanted to get away from them. You never saw a tree. You never saw anything that was clean. We had no electricity. And we had 4 people sleeping in one bed. I had a friend of mine who was shot in the neck. I had a friend of mine, I saw his mother jump off the roof. You know, gangsters have been glamorized, but gangsters in truth died very young. The gangsters did it because they got money faster. They wanted to wear a good suit. I don't think their intentions were evil. We used to have a hunchback kid around the block, and before we went up for a gang fight with the kids from another block, we all used to rub our knuckles on the spine. I couldn't do it. He says, go ahead. He says, you'll miss the fight. And I says, well, why do you let the guys do that? And he says, come on, I'm one of the guys. I ain't hurt. And there was the reason. It made him one of the guys.
I love that clip because it shows Jack Kirby's deep understanding of the human condition. Villains aren't one-dimensional bad guys. They're like you and me, complicated. My favorite villain is Magneto because he's complex, nuanced, and sympathetic. His goals make sense when you see the world through his life experience. In the Hunchback story, it just poetically captures the human desire to just fit in.
This was at a time when everybody was patriotic, and it was ridiculous not to do Captain America, because there was an idea that would have been bought by everybody. Our job was to sell comic books.
How many people know that Jack Kirby co-created Captain America decades before Marvel was even Marvel? Or that he co-created Iron Man, Thor, the Hulk, Black Panther, the X-Men, and the Fantastic Four? Just look at the Wikipedia for all the characters he created. It's insane.
By his own admission, Jack Kirby's superhero creations are so numerous even he can't keep track. After some 40 years at the drawing board and an estimated 40,000 pages of action with such characters as Captain America, Fantastic Four, and the Avengers, Kirby is the undisputed king of comic book superhero.
Well, the characters represent a transcendent feeling that we all have inside us. We could do better. We want to do better. We can be the people that we lionize.
Kirby wasn't just an incredible artist, he was an architect. His creative work was like an invitation into an entirely new universe.
He's the only person I know that in 3 decades was the top man in his field and reinvented himself each time. So the way he drew when he created Captain America, and then the way that he drew at Marvel, creating the FF, and it just within a few years, if you look at from 61 to 65, it's totally different and better every time. So for a guy to have that kind of intense creativity that long, that many pages into his career is unprecedented.
While Stan Lee was the face of Marvel, doing interviews, cameos, and signing autographs, Kirby was the engine under the hood, powering Marvel's golden age, sketching for hours and burning himself out just to keep Marvel afloat.
If in 1970, DC or Marvel had given Jack the exact same contract they gave newcomers in 1985, Jack would have been very happy. He would have gotten the credit and money he deserved. But in 1970, when he said, well, you know, I should have some sort of sales bonus in this thing, they told him, no, we can't do that. No, we can't share the copyright on this stuff. No, we can't pay you, we can't return your original art to you. We can't do all these things that later became very standard. Jack was told in the 60s and 70s, the business cannot do these.
He didn't own his creations. He didn't get royalties. He often didn't even get his original artwork back. And all his creations would just be sold off without his consent. Imagine creating an entire universe and watching it go on to create billions of dollars while you barely scrape by. That's not right. That's not justice.
I think that sometimes you can be too good and people that consider it a threat. I mean, Jack was awfully good. You know, Jack really had no ambitions besides doing what he was doing. But sometimes people interpret it differently. I don't know.
We talk about Marvel like it's this unstoppable cultural juggernaut, and it is, but it was built on the shoulders of a man who most casual fans couldn't pick out of a lineup. Jack Kirby's influence is everywhere, from movies to video games to just about everything Marvel creates. Yet, when you hear Marvel, his name isn't the first you think of, but it should be, because he gave characters soul. How much do you think Jack Kirby got paid for creating all these characters that made Marvel billions? 100 million? 10 million? Nope. Try about $15 per page. Just check out this invoice from 1945. $170 for 12 pages. Marvel used to put a legal agreement on the back of their checks, so if you signed the check so you could cash it, you signed over everything you created to Marvel. This actually isn't surprising because few people know that during the 1970s, the CEO of Marvel was the Kingpin. A one-time payment to create Thor, Iron Man, the Black Panther, X-Men, and even more. Meanwhile, the former CEO of Marvel, Ike Perlmutter, who never wrote a single line of dialogue or drew a single panel, made $3 billion when they sold Marvel to Disney. Now, don't get me wrong, Perlmutter did an amazing job of pulling Marvel out of bankruptcy and turning it into a media juggernaut. But $3 billion in Jack Kirby? Nothing, nada, zilch. Stan Lee didn't fare much better for a long time. And right now, I'm not going to get into who deserves more credit for what character, Stan Lee or Kirby. That's for you to debate in the comments. Stan Lee eventually fought Marvel in court and secured himself a deal of $1 million per year for life. Stan Lee was a master of self-promotion, a marketing genius who made himself part of the Marvel brand, and he made millions of dollars outside of the comics. But the reality is, even Stan Lee made peanuts compared to the value of the assets he created. And Kirby, he wasn't a marketer, he was an artist, a workhorse. He poured his soul into his dynamic, explosive, boundary-pushing art, and he didn't own a single thing because he worked under a work-for-hire contract, which basically meant that everything he created was owned by the company, and the only payment he got was a one-time fee. Marvel owned Hulk, Thor, Ant-Man, and all his other creations. Kirby got his flat rate, and that was it. His art became intellectual property, a corporate asset. The sad truth is corporations don't care. Not about art, not about fairness, not about the people who create the things they profit from. The artist is the lowest form of life on the rung of the ladder. Publishers are usually businessmen who deal with business. They deal with promotional people. They deal with financial people. They deal with accountants. They deal with people who work on higher levels. They deal with tax people. They have absolutely no interest in artists and individual artists, especially very young artists. Jack Kirby. If Jack Kirby would have just owned 1% of Marvel, when it was sold to Disney, his stake would have been worth $40 million. And yet, even that staggering amount is just a fraction of the value he created, both in terms of financial and in terms of the joy he's brought to humanity. And also, his art is just sick. Just look at this. It's incredible. He has such a unique style. You can look at a single panel and know, this is Jack Kirby. There's just so much energy, so much power. I just love the way he draws everything. Decades after his passing, Kirby's creations continue to bring me and my son closer together. We watch the movies, we drive around town hunting for comics, we debate Iron Man, Thor, and the X-Men, and most importantly, who would win in a fight. I genuinely believe that Jack Kirby and Stan Lee are the Homer of our time. No, not Homer Simpson, but the Homer who wrote the Odyssey. 600 years from now, when historians look back at this time, they might call it the Marvel period. Archaeologists digging through the rubble might think we worshipped Iron Man as a god, because we certainly build shrines to these heroes. It's really simple, but we often forget this as fans. Who created the magic? Who created the heroes, the story, the emotions? It was a person. And so many of these artists, they barely scrape by. It's not just a Jack Kirby problem. It's an entire creative industry problem. Artists, writers, and designers often struggle to just get paid fairly for our work. It's hard because as an artist, you're just so grateful to have someone be paying you anything at all to do what you love. And business people, they exploit this. So what do creators do? How do we protect ourselves? You have to own at least a stake in your own work. Get royalties, try to get the copyright, at least try to get shares in the company that's hiring you to do work for them. Because if you don't, someone else will. And while they're cashing billion-dollar checks, you'll be wondering about how you're going to pay rent.
One of the rewards Jack had was that he lived to see the comic book business change exactly the way he always knew it would have to change. And of course, the sad part was that he was not in a position to benefit directly from those changes.
Jack Kirby deserved better, and so do today's creators. So let's not let history repeat itself. Life at best is bittersweet. Jack Kirby.